I'm Jared Jones, owner of Two Guys and a Hammer Construction Company, and this is Park on the Square. What I liked about this building is that it had individual areas that were kind of broken up, so it was like building 6 houses. But we had a roof, we had floors, we had windows. So it was like a very large, individual, separated remodel. And we had been remodeling for years. So if I stood out there on the corner and looked very long, I would talk myself out of it. But if I came inside and saw the potential and saw how everything could be broken down pretty easily, I got excited about it. Okay, in all of the individual apartments, we used certain things that stayed a part of the building, like this. A.L. Emery was a lawyer in the 20s, and so this was the actual entrance into his office. All of these doors have transoms above, and it's all made out of that exact same flower design glass that was so popular back in the 20s. So trying to do as much remodeling around these as possible, but maintain their integrity and maintain their value, very difficult. Telling you that this is really cool and that this is a game changer for us was because of the historical value of the building. And also what I began to realize, not in the beginning, but that it was the major emphasis in the Okmulgee Rising. And Okmulgee's rebirth into its historic downtown began with this building.
I had listened to the first presentation by Ron Drake about flipping this town, and then I went to the second presentation, and by the third presentation, I knew I wanted to do something, but I thought that I would be an investor, not an owner. After the third presentation, I went home one night, and my husband had been home by himself for an hour after the last presentation, and he'd spent an hour crunching the numbers and trying to decide what he wanted to do. And I walked in the door, and he said, "We need to buy the Parkinson." And I said, "Okay," and the whole decision was made in about 10 minutes.
All right, a few things. When you get into these apartments, some of the things you have to keep in mind is that none of the apartments had kitchens, none of them had bathrooms, none of them had closets, so we had to bring a lot in. This particular kitchen, there was a wall right here, and this was part of the hallway. So we didn't need that much hallway, but we had to have a kitchen. So by bouncing this wall out, we were able to do a 3-sided kitchen and get the right amount of appliances in, and still have enough hallway in the hallway space. So this, all of our conduit, electrical, everything had to be external because of the historic value of the plaster. We didn't want to eliminate all of the plaster. So we have the boxes established on the wall, all of our conduit external, and that's why everywhere you look, especially in the kitchen, you can see it inside the backsplash. We've got our GFI plugs, and this particular kitchen had the stainless steel countertops with the black cabinets, craft-made cabinets, and then all of our appliances are from Neil's Furniture. So again, right here in Okmulgee. 12-foot ceilings, meaning we had a couple of options with lighting. One of our lights, all of the kitchens will have that light that is made out of the grate from the 100-year-old elevator. So LED lights on bottom, CFLs on top, and it really provides nice lighting for the kitchen. I didn't understand at first, but then it became increasingly obvious that Okmulgee needed this, and most of Okmulgee wanted this. We had several critics that would come up and say, "Oh, that's neat how you did that. Unfortunately, it'll never go." And we love how you've resurfaced the floors, and they look beautiful. Unfortunately, Mary and Jean have wasted all their money on this, and that's kind of hard to take. That's you don't know what to say, and I'd like to get frustrated, I'd like to get angry, but they know, as in Mary and Jean, and I know this is a huge success. All of our living spaces and all of our bedrooms have ceiling fan light combos, but in these particular apartments, we've got the luxury of having a skylight. Now, skylights aren't real efficient because a lot of skylights leak. So once we put on the new roof, we went ahead and capped them. So by eliminating the skylight, we lose some of the natural lighting. So what we did was we brought in mason jars and hung on pendant lights, and that lit up the architecture and the design of the woodwork inside the skylights. That's an original skylight with a modern lighting twist.
I'm from Okmulgee. I escaped Okmulgee twice. The second time I came back, I thought there's a reason why I'm here. I need to settle in and just stay put. I absolutely love this little town. I'm here by choice. I'm a graduate of Okmulgee High School. I've seen Okmulgee come and I've seen it go, and I know the potential. And I just thought this was such a great idea. And I didn't want to wait on everybody else to talk it. And when Gene said go, if he was all for it, then I was all for it.
Now, when we go into the bedrooms, we had to put in a lot of these new doors. A lot of the new walls we had to make look just like the plaster walls. All of the new ductwork come in, redoing all the windows. But in certain areas just like this, the closets from the other apartment kind of bump into this room, which provided a desk area for this tenant. Worked out real well. When we do our closets, we try to position them in a room where it won't affect where a bed goes or where a possibility of maybe having a dresser or anything like that. So with a desk area here, a closet here, all of our closets and bathrooms are 8 foot tall because we wanted, one of the main complaints in apartments is that you just don't have enough room. So by making these 8 foot tall with 12 foot ceilings, you can put storage and luggage or furniture or anything up there that you're not using right away and store inside your own apartment. Any place that we had a rock wall, the plaster was deteriorating. And so in this particular place, outside the building, we had water damage and the plaster was deteriorating. So what we did was, instead of trying to repair damaged plaster, we saw cut as close to the window as we could and exposed this natural rock. And by sealing it and keeping it exposed, again, you have some natural historic value to the building that we're able to accent in these walls. Mary actually called me, and Mary and I had spoken several times through officiating or whatnot. Well, it came to, and I actually did some work on their house. Well, when she called me, she said, "Hey, I want you to come look under the building." I didn't want to. This was a frustrating piece of the puzzle in our career. So I said, you know what? I respect Gene and Mary. I'll come humor you. That's really the attitude I came in with. I'll humor you. And they took me upstairs, and I looked around, and I'll never forget it. Literally, they both looked at me and said, "Is this something that you think you can do?" And I said, there's some possibilities here. I don't know. First we need to, see what it's going to take. And they said, "We've already bought the building. We're asking you if you want to do it." It was just, I was blown away. Here it was. This was my second chance. And I was so excited. Then I began to really picture the steps and the phases and the process, and it was pretty neat. Now, bathrooms. Of course, bathrooms didn't exist in the building and the apartments themselves. So what we did was we had to build in all of the bathrooms. Now, I had to keep in mind that these are apartments, so they do look small, but they're very efficient. You have a standard size tub with a tile backsplash surround, which was actually an upgrade that Mary and Gene said, "Listen, we don't want to just throw in a tub surround. Let's make these nice. Let's make them nice for our tenants." So picked out some beautiful tile and tiled the backsplashes with the amenities of the toilet and the vanities. This was something that if we went to a box store and bought a vanity to set here, it would look like any house that you would go into. So what we did was, when we took up old flooring inside the building, we kept it. We tried to keep all of it. So these vanities in all of the bathrooms were actually repurposed flooring that one of the guys that works for me, Kevin Mycloff, actually built by hand. We've got the sinks from IKEA and the hardware, and was able to use repurposed flooring for our backsplashes. Certain things like this provided an experience for the tenant to know that there are some things inside this building that they're going to use every day because they're functional, but also that this flooring is over 100 years old, and that's what their vanity is made out of.
I really did it for the love of this little town and wanting to bring it back to what it was.
All right, apartment 2 was the old Okmulgee Business College. Now, the great thing about this is that one of the ladies on our open house came in here and she was looking around at the floor really intent, and we thought, I don't know, I wonder if she dropped something. And then she told us that this is where she sat when she attended the Okmulgee Business College. And then she sat down and told us all kinds of stories. So to see that a part of history like the Okmulgee Business College, which doesn't exist anymore, and now is full of life again, this lady was able to experience it and then lend us an opportunity to be able to experience it with her. Step one was meeting our consultant. There's a gentleman, Ron Drake from Siloam Springs, Arkansas, who did this. He's already done it. He's done it several times in buildings in Siloam Springs. So when I got to meet him, I had a lot of questions. And to be honest, I was reserved. I thought, okay, we've remodeled, and I don't know about this guy telling us what to do. But when he stated his purpose was to help blend that standard custom remodeling experience, and you join that, you marry that with a historical building, then I thought, well, I can learn from this. And once I took on that approach, and then trust me, it didn't go over very well every time. A lot of times I just put up a stiff arm and said, no, we're not doing that. And so it took some massaging, it took some communication to break down some of those barriers to say, we think we need to try to do it this way. Would you at least, tiling the bathrooms, for instance, I had a way that I always did it, and it was modern, it was contemporary, it looked great. When he wanted to change that, I fought it pretty hard. But he gave me a few examples that I thought, maybe this is worth trying, maybe this is gonna turn out. And it did, it turned out great. Over the bathrooms, because they're 8 foot tall, we have a lot of space up here. One of the things in remodeling a 100-year-old building is that you have to put in modern things like heat and air. Right now, that was a perfect place for all of our air handlers. So I know it's inside the apartment, but luckily Haynes Heat and Air was able to provide us with the correct kind of unit that would be quiet enough to where you could have a kitchen 10 feet away. When your heater kicks on, you can't really hear it. So that was really cool. Over here we've got our kitchen area. Now, again, one of the things with modern construction is lighting. We have come so far in lighting. So in an area like this, we've got 3 different options of lighting. Now, when we use one option, we've got our skylight, which we talked earlier, and this is one of the benefits, is that we have skylight lighting, which actually turns into somewhat of a kind of night light. Again, using our mason jars made right here in Okmulgee. And then our other lights that we made out of the grates, we've got a light on top that kind of serves as function. So that way it illuminates the kitchen up high, so that's why you have cooking kind of light. And then below, we've got LED lighting that provides just a perfect amount of light on the countertops when you're preparing food, which also can be used as a night light also. These shelves were the ones we were talking about earlier, that these shelves, as these boards, were actually around the elevator, and all of the nail holes and the cut marks and everything. This particular board here, actually, you can see the sawmill cuts where the saw cut through the lumber to form it. And I'm talking, this was over 100 years old. This lumber was actually made for that elevator. So when we take it and we repurpose it, and then we polyurethane it to preserve it, all of this lumber here, everything was served a specific purpose inside the building at one time. I like knowing that for the next 100 years, it's going to serve a completely different purpose, so that now we're going to use it not structural, but to kind of emphasize the nature and the character of that wood.
Well, it's got great history, first of all, and just the elements that were already here that they could use, from the windows to the frames to the hardwood floors, everything that they were able to utilize within the context of the rooms made this building just prime.
Now, this was, in some of these apartments, we could use Formica countertops, or we can do something different, but because one, they're going to be rental units, and two, we wanted this to be kind of a high-end luxury apartment living downtown Okmulgee. We decided to go with butcher block countertops. This is maple, and with a cream-colored craft-made cabinet underneath, this came together so nice. These are plaster walls. On the plaster walls, it's difficult to put tile because one, the plaster, some places it's very strong. Other places it cracks and falls off when you touch it. So it's hard to put tile on the backsplashes. So what do? We take the remnants of our maple butcher block countertops, turned it up, and set it on as our backsplash. So something, again, that presented itself. We didn't know exactly how it would work with the plaster in our backsplash. This was a perfect backsplash.
As we proceeded and we ran into some real surprises, but I would look at Gene and he'd look at me and we'd look at Jared and say, we can't stop now, so we just keep moving forward. And all we kept in the back of our mind was it will pay for itself once it's finished and once it's fully occupied. It'll pay for itself, and it'll be a great, great thing to show the other people who are involved in Okmulgee Rising that this really is going to work.
Why there was a door here right in the middle of the apartment, we don't know. We don't know what was there. We don't know what the purpose served, but now it's right in the middle of my kitchen. So placing an 18-inch 3-drawer stack cabinet here on the base, again, the butchbuck on top, this opens up just far enough to where we don't touch our range oven. So it opens up into one of our first bedrooms. One of those big surprises and eye-openers were the floors. These floors were so difficult because of the linoleum. The kind of linoleum they used and the kind of mastic that they put down was this black tar substance. Now, we had it tested, so there's no asbestos, there's no chemicals, nothing harmful, no lead or anything, but we couldn't get it up. The sander took too long. It would just gum up our sander, so we ended up having razor blades and knives on our hands and knees in these 2 rooms, scraping up this black mastic and trying to remove it. And once we did get it removed, it exposed a beautiful hardwood floor that hadn't been seen in 100 years. It was beautiful. So in one way, I'm glad that they actually covered it because it preserves it for us and the next few generations. On the other hand, myself and the guys that worked on it, not so much. I thought they were crazy because it was in Okmulgee. Honestly, that's what I thought, because I had the same perception that everybody else has that either lives here, has lived here, or has driven through the town. It's just nothing, there's nothing there. So but they were natives, they were enthusiastic, so I thought, hey, you know what? I'm just a contractor, so I don't have to live here. Now, I wished I could live here. I mean, seriously, getting to see the town and how vibrant it is, it's like you can see the heartbeat of Okmulgee again. You can feel it, and it's incredible. This 2-bedroom unit actually has the ability, this to be an office space. Again, some of this window, I like how the architecture design of these, separating these 2 rooms, you could have just put a wall up, easy, and then just went ahead and put plaster on it and been done with it, but they didn't. They took the time to frame in these kinds of windows that have this real decorative design inside the glass. They did the framework well. Everything was built so well. The same kind of trim work and framework around the doors, they carried right over on top of their windows. It was beautiful. They did a great, great job. Areas like this was difficult for me to understand, but when we had an area like this that was just notched out, I struggled with in a historic building trying to figure out, well, do we patch that? Do we take more down and expose it? It was difficult to understand. But Ron, our consultant, actually said an area just like this will show the tenant enough of the structure of the building without compromising the integrity of this wall. Again, it just provides a nice accent that you can't find anywhere else. You couldn't hang a picture here, or you couldn't draw a painting or anything or put a piece of furniture here that would show you more about this building and the history than that notch in the plaster gives us.
Okmulgee Main Street brought the idea of Okmulgee Rising to the community. We've recently had a change in leadership at the city, and with a new city manager, with a mayor who is very on board with moving forward instead of backwards. Also, the Chamber of Commerce, the Muskogee Creek Nation, OSUIT, there are 5 main entities involved right now, and for the first time in the history of Okmulgee that I can remember, all 5 of these groups are sitting down at the same table, discussing the same concepts, deciding that we can actually get this done if we work together. So with all of these groups working together, I feel like we had nowhere to go but up. OSUIT has recently agreed to invest a great deal of money in downtown Okmulgee to build dormitories for their students. It can't help but succeed.
Okay, so this is a 2-bedroom apartment. These are the 2 bedrooms, and then we move into our living area space. Okay, so this used to be an office. It was just a normal office room, and we had the big windows behind us. We brought in these windows. Again, we wanted to try to match what the original architects did. If there was a wall, why can't we put a piece of glass in it and really accent that wall and then provide some natural lighting? So we have big windows to our left, and then some of that natural lighting goes right through the window and illuminates some of the kitchen area. This was a piece of furniture that over and over and over, Mary, our building owner, kept saying, if this was my apartment, what I would want to do is I would want a window seat here so that these 3 big, beautiful windows, a perfect view of Main Street, Okmulgee, I would want to sit here. I would want to read a book here. I'd want to look at my iPad here. So what we did is we custom built it. This was a perfect area that we could go ahead and custom build a piece of furniture, attach it to the building. And I can't tell you how many people have come into this room, into this apartment and said, oh, this is just beautiful. Did you just resurface this? And we didn't. This is a brand new piece that we didn't necessarily strip it down to a smooth piece of lumber, but we left the knots. We left a lot of this dips and a lot of these dents in it. A lot of the millworms that were affected by this. This piece of furniture was built in Okmulgee County. The lumber came from Okmulgee County and was sawmilled and cut and designed and built in Okmulgee County. So everything stayed right here. And that's also it's a pretty cool thing to be able to say that we just didn't go to a box store and pick it up. This furniture probably cost $1,500 to $2,000, but because it was all done right here for Park on the Square in Okmulgee, it ended up costing probably $500 to $600.
The views, the windows, the view that you could use, and just setting the room to where that accentuates everything for the room itself. So whenever I went to look for furniture and I went to look for different pieces that would accentuate the colors, I looked also to tie it all together. So not only was I looking in this room, but I would also look at some of the other color schemes in the other rooms and try to pull some of those elements together. So it felt more like it was a flowing throughout the whole building. So it wasn't just choppy and cut off at each particular room, that would all flow together.
All right, now the hallway was incredible. I don't know how they had that kind of foresight to have an 8-foot wide hallway. But as far as my building inspector, the engineer we had come in to certify the building, they all looked at this hallway and just said, it's beautiful, it's massive, it's tall, it's functional, it's not restrictive, and they did a great job. So what we ended up doing is we took some of these old lights out of the building next door to us that were just sitting in a pile collecting dust and said, can we use those? So when we installed those, we painted the inside of them white, we painted the top the same gray color as the walls. After resurfacing the entire floor and polyurethane it to a gloss, this hallway became not only just a means of transportation, but it became a focal point. I mean, this is an introduction to these apartments that we couldn't have asked for. When you think about a hallway, when you think about a corridor, it's not exactly what is it providing for the building other than the obvious. It's functional. But this became another room in the whole building that actually had a story to tell also. So very proud of the hallway.
People wonder why Okmulgee failed. Okmulgee didn't fail. Okmulgee's not any different from any small town in America. The economy fluctuates. People moved to the big cities. The big box stores moved in and took over downtown. One thing about Okmulgee, the buildings did not fall apart, and that was one of the greatest things that we found out. There was a lot of money in this town around the turn of the century. The population was huge. There was a lot of oil money here. These buildings are absolutely quality built, and they continue to stand as far as structure, as far as strength. We were able to open them back up and bring them back to life. But I think one of the reasons we were able to do this is because they were so well built to begin with. So even though they were abandoned, the quality of the structures were still here.
Apartment number 3. Now, one thing I want to point out is that these floors in the offices were finished floors. They had a real tight grain. I'm pretty sure that all of the wood is oak. But these were finished floors. They're a 2-inch plank, and the outside was actually a 3.5-inch plank subfloor. So everything on these floors, from all of the discoloration to the scratches, even in one of the apartments we'll talk about later, they have burn marks, water damage. It all created an atmosphere and a kind of a character to all of the floors. And this one has some of the best. I think apartment 3 has the best flooring out of any of the apartments. And I think what really got me was I could walk into an apartment and identify living room, bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, and be okay with it, and get a checklist, get a phase list, get a subcontractor list, and be fine. I had to do it 5 more times, and the numbers all had to match, and it was like, this is overwhelming. I mean, this is big, and so having just to sit down and make sure that all of our T's were crossed and our I's were dotted, that was a big struggle because of the massive size of this job. The other thing, the building itself and the job itself kept presenting big problems, question marks. The building, the structural, major structurally secure. It was incredible to walk through a building that's been sitting vacant for 60 to 80 years, that was built over 100 years ago, and it be 100% structurally sound. I mean, it was incredible. So a new roof and plaster ceilings that all fell down, and floors that had tar on them. I mean, this isn't your Lowe's, Home Depot kind of linoleum. This had tar. So there were so many things like that I thought, honestly, my main consistent thought through the whole process is, I have never seen that before. That's what from the texture to the deteriorating plaster to the water damage to the tar floors, I have never seen that before. And it took a group of guys that I worked with and our consultant to get together and just say, how do we get past this? And we would come up with the best plan, and this is the result. This kitchen became somewhat of a U-shaped kitchen. It's hard to imagine now, but right here, there were 6 big windows right here in a doorway. And so when we looked at this area, how this office, this room right here that was divided by this wall and this door, this is where the secretary sat for Gus Berry Drilling. And I'm presuming Gus Berry himself sat in his office with the 2 windows. And so whoever came into the office would see the secretary first, and then from there they would go on in to the next room. So when we decided, and this is a tough decision, to take down these 2 big glass panes and that door, we took out the door with the transom. It left 1 window and then its mate underneath. Well, once that happened, it still became kind of restrictive. So the new modern touch is open. We want to open up more room. So with a more open concept, we took out the remaining bottom window and left the top window. When we took this one out, this became a perfect area for a bar top. Only 2 other kitchens in this whole building have a bar top. And then that designed our kitchen for us. So a nice U-shaped kitchen. We still have the same kind of shelving up top. Some of this shelving, because of where it was inside the elevator shaft, it has huge notches taken out of them. Some of it's broken, some of it's chipped. And at the end of the day, we decided that that's okay. I think that's all right. I think it's okay not to try to cover up either the natural defect of the wood or the man-made defect so many years ago. Let's expose it. Let's polyurethane it and let's highlight it. And that was a totally new concept to me.
The fun thing that we got to do through this process, because we're such great friends with Gene and Mary and Jared, we were able to see what they wanted and kind of what their vision was and how they wanted it to look. And so throughout the whole process, I just kept getting excited because every step of the way I could see something that they had in their mind come together. And that was the best part about the whole process of bringing this building back to life.
Now, because we took this down and it became a more open concept, the living room flowing in from the kitchen became really a focal point. This especially. Now, there was a lot of water damage. They had gas stoves for heat. And then when they would heat these gas stoves, they would go through the vent shaft straight out of the building. They put bricks around the vent shaft because it was a lot stronger and they could actually form the bricks better around the stack than they could any of the natural rock. So wherever these vent stacks were, it usually wasn't sealed properly or it wasn't maintained properly. I don't know. The result was water damage, and it began to deteriorate a lot of the plaster. So what we did, again, saw cut right through here, get back to something that's substantial, that's really healthy, cut this out. Well, all this did was just open up an area where I think a 60-inch flat screen TV would hang perfect. So with that in mind, after saw cutting this, cleaning up all the rock and the mortar, sealing everything up and down, we're actually going to be able to hang a TV on this wall, and it's going to be a perfect focal point for our new living room. So many times I felt like we are going nowhere. I mean, nothing is getting done, but when you sheetrock for 4 to 5 weeks, it feels like nothing's getting done. So the milestones of framing, of paint, of kitchen cabinets and bathrooms and tile and the floors being renovated, those are big steps, but weeks go by in between those steps where you think, man, are we actually doing something? You know, are we actually doing something to get to our goal? This is one of our symmetrical apartments. We've got bedrooms on both sides. One of the things I wanted to show you was in the design of the bedrooms, we tried to use different elevations. And luckily, our sprinkler company was able to work with us on that. Again, we've got a standard 8-foot tall closet, but at this point, we had this area right here that just didn't have anything in it. There really wasn't a reason for it, and we wanted everything to have a purpose and a reason. So we dropped this ceiling down just above the door frame, and we just put in a ceiling right there. So one, you can have storage up here, increased storage for this specific bedroom, but then also two, you can have a built-in desk right here. And then also we have our fiber optics, Ethernet, data right here, so that if you were able to put a desk here, you could have all of the functionality of a workstation and all of your internet right here.
It never fazed me because Jared, with 2 guys and a hammer, kept saying, we can do this, we can do this. My concern was getting all the garbage out of it. One of the things about all these downtown buildings, as they boarded up the upper floors, the stuff that was left behind was just phenomenal. Old files, old boxes full of junk, doors, windows, just garbage that people had stored upstairs rather than take the time to empty. But Jared attached his chute to one of the upstairs windows and pointed it toward a dumpster down in the street, and he and his guys started hauling the garbage out. Now, the good stuff that could be reused was piled and moved and put in places where we could get to it. But the thing that was most frustrating to me was to get the garbage out.
All right, that finishes up apartment 3. Right across the hallway, we've got our built-in laundromat. Now, this whole side of the building was wide open. There were no walls on this side of the building. So we had to be pretty specific about where we placed things. Apartment number 6 is that end of the building. We had to have a laundromat. I had to have a room for a mechanical room. And then we had to have offices for the building manager. So right in the middle of those was our laundromat. We ended up going with coin operated. There were a lot of people who said, you know, tenants aren't gonna like that, but if you're renting an apartment anywhere else, there's chances are that you don't have room in your apartment for a washing machine anyway. So we went ahead and bit the bullet, went with coin operated commercial units, elevated them slightly, backed them up to our mechanical room so that we were able to use them, you know, maintenance them pretty well. Okay, a couple of the things we talked about earlier, and this was one of the best parts. Now, knowing what the building offers and how to use it was something we toiled with constantly. So this is one of those areas where we just bit the bullet and said, let's try to make it work. The beam up top is actually one of the original rails the elevator used. It slid on old wooden rails that they greased regularly. So instead of just getting rid of it, we took one of the rails, suspended it from the ceiling with chains, and then we took SO cord and wrapped around and made our own pendant lighting hanging off of that beam, and it turned out to provide a spectacular amount of light. Right below it, this was made specifically for a group of windows in our building to bar them. And so somebody, I don't know who, made this and put it over the windows so that nobody could break in. So we used it, turned it horizontal, attached chains to it just like we did up above with the beam, and now it became a hanger rack for your laundry. Every step from very minuscule to a huge step, there were processes to go through all of it. We couldn't just put a dumpster on the street. We had to figure out what parking space to put it in. That's going to be blocked off for 6 months. We built fencing to go around it, to attach the chute to the building. It was everything was such a big deal. I couldn't really believe that. I thought, okay, today we attach the chute, we put it in the dumpster, we build the fence, we're done. But that took 3 days. So I thought, man, that's just taking too long. It's taking too long, but it's such a big building and such a big process. So all of the trash and garbage, that was something the consultant helped us with. Normally, when we go into a building like this, or like someplace we have to renovate, we just need to gut it, just get everything out. That wasn't really the case here because a lot of this stuff was repurposed. So this 2x4 with nails in it, that I think, okay, it's got too many nails to spend the time in salvaging it, actually turns out to be one of these braces behind us. Those nail holes, once we remove the nails, is the perfect kind of character that shelf needs in that bracket. So I'm thinking, man, now we're saving too much. We need to throw more stuff away. The building's not empty yet. So it was a difficult process trying to figure out what goes, what stays, and then getting all of the trash gathered into that one apartment to throw out. So knowing that you have to have a laundry facility, that's one thing. It's got to be functional. So all those things we know we've got to have. But as we started to build it, things came together, like the beam, like the lighting, like this rack. The units fell into place on this wall perfectly. We've got another skylight that we're able to utilize for lighting straight above us. So hanging more pendant lighting out of those old mason jars that we found, it all came together pretty nice. We had to have a mechanical room so that we could do more of our industrial stuff in here, such as like our work panel, all of our fiber optics, everything gets transferred into here. This door is the same grating that the elevator used because this was the original door that the elevator used. So to get into the elevator, you had to come through this door. So actually we repurposed it and made it the door to our mechanical room, and I couldn't be happier. This was something that we had that we took apart off of the elevator. It's not actually a part of the birdcage elevator. It was a part of the framework around it that they used as the grating, and decided that this particular style door, because you can it doesn't trap anything and there's no privacy, that we couldn't use it anywhere else in any of the apartments. Bedroom doors, you could use it for a closet, but it's only one door. So your bedrooms, your bathrooms, and your entry doors, they have to be solid for privacy. The mechanical room doesn't have to have privacy. In fact, we don't want the mechanical room to get hot because of the fiber optics. So having this kind of grate on our door works out perfect. And to be able to have everybody come in and use the laundromat facility, get to experience this kind of a door, was just a huge plus.
As I've looked for past history of the buildings and the different owners and the people who were involved 100 years ago, what keeps coming back to me over and over is, in 100 years, when people are looking back to 2014, 2015, we're going to be the people that they're going to be reading about. And I think it says an awful lot that before we're even completed, we're 80% occupied. So I think that we've shown the rest of the people who are involved in Okmulgee Rising that this is going to be successful. And I'm enjoying the fact that we're making history right now.
Apartment number 4 is brought to us by Harlan A. Carter, an attorney in the 1920s. Now this was actually his office. This was where the secretary sat. His particular office was actually a bedroom now in apartment 3. So the design itself lends itself to, we want 2-bedroom apartments. That's what we want. Now, because of the design, this was the only space available left after the 2-bedroom apartments came in. So this is our only single-bedroom apartment. I understand what's cosmetic, what needs to come out. So I really wanted to see the floors. I really wanted to test the plaster on the walls. I wanted to, open the doors and shut them all. I wanted to see what I had, what the building was giving me to work with. And I knew the trash was just trash. Lots of paper. I mean, when we saw calendars still on the walls from the 1930s, I thought, man, this is, they left. Whatever day of work they had, they got up, they took their personal belongings and they left. So we still had desks. The desk I'm using right now for the whole job was one that was just in an apartment. It was in an office. So I don't know if it was the lawyers or the oil guys or the CPA, I don't know. Whichever one it was, I'm using their desk right now from the 30s or 40s. Apartment number 4, now I had to keep in mind that we build kitchens and bathrooms and remodel facilities and houses for families. So wrapping my mind around 3 base cabinets with all of the same appliances, but just a very small kitchen space. 8-foot shelving up on top, 3 base cabinets and the countertop. I thought, this is just too small. How can this be functional? But for one person in a single bedroom apartment, this area works out great. All the appliances fit together well. The standard for your microwave is to be over your range oven so that it serves as the vent also, and actually turned out to be pretty nice. It all came together really well. The bathroom, if you'll take a look at this bathroom. Now, this was the same design we just talked about in apartment 3, where we had these windows, this area for windows, and we had the door right in the middle. So we don't want to keep tearing windows out. We want to preserve as much as we can. So in order to preserve the top window and the bottom window up against where the bathroom was, we dropped the ceiling over the toilet. And because we dropped that ceiling cannot remain at that height because it's not code. That certain length is code, but we had to go back up to the original height for a bathroom. Well, once we did that, we decided if we went up just one more, we could design this stair-step bathroom design that nobody's ever seen before, and that's exactly how it worked. We've got 3 different ceilings inside the bathroom. The bathtub is completely tiled all the way up to that top area. It's a much taller, more extended bathtub design, but there again, the design lent itself to having that kind of tiled backsplash, and it actually worked. Now the toilet has that window right behind it. We wanted to stop tearing windows out. That wasn't our purpose. We wanted to preserve them and use them, and it actually worked out great right there. So in a single bedroom apartment, this bathroom is more than functional. It's a smaller vanity with a smaller sink, and because of that, it actually fits perfect right inside that bathroom. Taking a 100-plus-year-old icon in this building, like a birdcage elevator, and disassembling the frame around the elevator and being able to use those pieces of metal grates and distribute them in all of the apartments so that every person that rents in an apartment has the opportunity to see a piece of history in this building in the way of a 1919 birdcage elevator. So those are custom built lights that I had no idea we even could do it, and we did it, and they're beautiful. A lot of windows in this little apartment. You've got all of these windows inside your apartment, inside your bedroom. So not exactly the best scenario for, your headboard or a dresser or anything like that, but you have to choose. Either you're going to keep the historical integrity of something like this versus putting in just a standard solid sheetrock wall. So we chose to do this, leave it in there, keep the historic value, and then somewhere we'll work in like a sofa bed or a day bed or something like that. So the tenant that rents this apartment, being a one-person bedroom, being a one-person apartment, I think this is going to be nice, cozy, and it's going to be pretty functional. When we demo, we find things in the building. Like we took down part of the corridor wall in apartment 5, and here was this massive post that was perfectly preserved due to the plaster, and we redesigned our entire apartment number 5 kitchen around that post, and it became a focal point. It was beautiful. Once we sanded it and stripped it and polyurethaned it, it was gorgeous. Okay, now the original building, the design, the hallway ran the full length of the building, and so that means there was only one egress, only one set of stairs. And now, back then it was okay. That fire code was okay. The fire code has changed dramatically now. So we either had to put in a fire exit on the outside of the building, or we had to bring in a sprinkler system. Well, in this kind of a building with a building next to it and all of our electrical transformers are on the west side of the building, we couldn't. We just can't bring that in. You can't use a fire escape on that side. So the second option was sprinkler system. We put in a sprinkler system, which means we didn't have to access the whole hallway. So what we did was we cut the hallway off right here and put in our 5th 2-bedroom apartment and blocked off the hallway. So that's what apartment number 5 is. All of this wasn't here. So having to put in all of this brand new, but make sure it stays looking just like the building and the original building is really tricky. All the bathroom stuff, none of this was here. So to design this bathroom, make sure all the components are in here. This was the original flooring, the old flooring for the hallway, so it's not a finished floor. Having to work around some of these areas is pretty difficult. This is one of the areas we talked about earlier. This is where that pole provided an opportunity to build a kitchen around. So originally we just had a stainless steel prep table as our kitchen. But then once we exposed this and the beam up top, we decided that it was too valuable to remove and put a header in. So we got a smaller refrigerator, slipped it in right behind it. We built in an area for our dishwasher. And by building in this dishwasher right here, we were able to put in our stainless steel tops that matched our stainless steel prep table in our kitchen. Now, going from just having this prep table with our shelving to exposing this post and building this whole kitchen unit out of it is something that the building provided for us. So we build this shelf and this shelf and this shelf. So we know that storage, having more storage is a plus in apartments. We were able to slide in our dishwasher here. By boxing it off, we put in 2 to 3 more shelves. We wrap these. Because our microwave is here and it does have a light, we were able to cut the hole out of the bottom of this and still provide light, adequate light for this shelving and this spacing. So out of exposing this one column that potentially could have been a roadblock, it then becomes, because of the design of the building, the architecture, it becomes a focal point for our kitchen. Really brought this whole kitchen together and made it very, very functional. Interior windows, yeah, it was, I can't tell you how hard it was to save everything like that. Telling our construction crew or cleanup crew or demo crew, I need you to use a metal hammer to demo this, but 3 feet away from you is a 100-year-old window that they don't make anymore. So whatever you do, don't touch that window. And we actually broke 3 windows. In a building that has over 80 windows, we broke 3. And 2 of those were because of the wind that came through in a draw or a draft. It slammed the door shut and broke the windows. So physically, we broke 1, and I was pretty pleased with that. So the interior windows, we had piles of glass and windows stacked up in the hallway. We tried to reuse those in places that, okay, I know it's a solid wall, but it's inside the apartment. If we could use a window that we have in the building, insert it into a solid wall, gain more light, natural light, why not try it? And so it's a gamble. I think there were two projects that we put together that just didn't work. I mean, they just didn't look good or they didn't serve the purpose. So there again, you're preserving materials that the building presents you with for a hypothetical purpose, and it's either going to work or it's not. If all of these ideas we had, like in apartment 2 where we had windows inserted above the frame, if it doesn't work, then we're just boarding it back up and sheetrocking it. So, but it did work in a lot of times. And the exterior windows, historical building, part of the tax credit. So we want to preserve the windows. We want to put in the old windows, old wooden sashes. I had a millwork guy that was incredible, Justin Jones, and he took all the windows, the upper 2 windows in the whole building, took them apart, repurposed them, put them back together, and then brought them back. And we put the glass in them and we're using them. So putting in new pulleys, new ropes, reusing the old weights, and we have windows that are actually original to the building, and they're awesome. The living area, some people say it's small, but it's actually just elongated. It's kind of narrow, but it's extremely long. So in areas like this, it becomes difficult, especially for guys like me. But people like Teresa. Teresa would say, oh, no, it's not difficult because you can put a TV here and on the right kind of bracket, tilt it, and you can have a sofa there, and you can have a recliner here and put a table here and a lamp here. She's so good at stuff like that. Whereas when we build a room like this, because this is an existing wall, that's an existing wall, there was really nothing for us to do in here but just restore what was already here.
The great thing about these types of buildings are already the pieces that are here. So you just have to find the little things that highlight those particular avenues that you want to really focus on.
This is a real massive introduction into a bedroom for an apartment, but it was already here. So why take it down and just make walls that look like every other wall in every other house when we can save this and make sure that we preserve some of that history in the building. Now, because of the windows on this side, because of this window, the only place in this entire apartment for a closet was right here, which meant that it can't be just a standard apartment closet. It's actually going to be a corner closet. All of this stuff has to be designed and custom built in buildings like this. So sometimes it's great what the building gives you because you can use it, you can work with it, and it provides a lot of character. Other times, because of just the limited space inside this building, inside this particular room, this is the only place we can put a closet. The windows, like we talked about before, all of these windows, because they're weighted, they're on the pulley system. We had to refurbish all of these window sashes, put new glass in, and surprisingly, whenever we did that, when we put all new trim on, these windows are pretty efficient. Now, are they the energy efficient windows you read about online or you see on TV? No, they're not. But for what they had back in the day and what we can use now and how we can reuse what we have, they're actually very efficient. So I've been impressed with them. Every possible thing in this building has got to be viewed through historic lenses. And when we brought the old door in, because you could still order doors that were a 2-pane smooth face door, when we got them in, first when I saw them, I thought, this is ridiculous. These are hideous. But when you put them in the rooms and we got them installed and got them painted, they fit. It fit perfect. So, I mean, being able to do that was a great learning experience for me. But the baseboard, we'll go to T.H. Rogers and we'll find a baseboard, and it's the standard K-trim 2¼ inch baseboard. That's what we find in all of our homes. Man, was that not the case here. Here in this building was a 3-piece baseboard set where we had a 1x6 base, we had a quarter round at the bottom, and we had a piece of coping on top of the 1x6. So everywhere we had to put in new trim, we had to match these up perfect, and that's what it took. So, you know, it doesn't become a $3.50 per 8-foot stick of trim. It becomes 3 pieces of trim that total $12 to $15 total. And, you know, I know that's tough on the financial side, but that's why, luckily, the Historical Society, the federal and state, they say we're offering you a tax credit to offset some of these things we're asking you to do, like preserving trim, preserving windows, preserving floors. It takes more money to do that rather than just replace it with something new and modern and easy. To do this kind of baseboard work, it takes a lot more time, a lot more craftsmanship. And so almost any guy on my crew can put up K-trim, but there's about 3 of them that could do the trim that this building required and do it very well. Apartment number 6 is our final apartment, and this one actually became, as far as the construction crew and the owners, this became one of our favorites. One, it's massive, it's 960 square feet. But again, this is the side of the building that the laundromat's on and the office is on, so there were no walls. It was just a completely straight shot warehouse. Again, part of what the building offers us are things like this. Now, when we came in here, nobody knew what this was. Obviously it's rock, but what did it go to? Is this a doorway? Was it a window? There's a building right next to us. So it's not to the outside, so what purpose did it serve? So by asking some of these questions, some of the old timers in our area began to tell us stories about why things like this exist. This was a wide open warehouse because this is where all the ammunition was stored for the 33rd Battalion, which actually practiced in a shooting range right behind this wall. They still have the 50, 75, and 100-foot markers for the shooting range. So because this was a storage facility for all the ammunition, there was no reason to finish the floors. This is all just original subflooring. All of those original burn marks, I was told these burn marks are where buckets were. And the buckets carried the hot shells from the ammunition, and it burned holes in the floor like this. Areas like this where normally when we get called to come in and do a restoration job, we're hired to take out this kind of flooring. This flooring's been burned, or we have flooring in this building that has water damage. Well, if a certain percentage of that flooring is not burned through, then it still has structural integrity. This flooring does have that same structural integrity. Therefore, to be able to sand that, polyurethane it, and leave it and preserve it, that was a concept that we weren't really used to. But through some trial and error, it ends up looking very, very good inside this building. Now, this kitchen is one of our favorites, not only because it's large, but also because we were able to build an island. Again, part of the difficulties in this process is you're trying to take a historic 100-plus-year-old building and bring in modern contemporary assets. So when we do that, when we have an opportunity in a real big kitchen like this to build in an island, somebody is going to be able to cook and provide a kitchen area for them that's very modern, and this island does that. Again, oak butcher block countertops. This was pretty neat. Our consultant kept telling us, hey, you need to save these slats that we took out of the walls that we demoed. On construction back in the day, they used slat and plaster. So the plaster wouldn't just stick on the 2x4, so they had to adhere something to the 2x4 walls first, and these were slats. Little bitty pieces of wood, just like this. They're about 1 inch wide. They can be up to 4 foot long, and they're about 1/4 of an inch thick. So we saved them per his request. He said, you're gonna wanna use those somewhere. So there we go. On the front of this, we ended up finish nailing all of these slats that came out of one of the walls inside this building. And it became, instead of bringing in new lumber, new wood, and staining that wood to look old, we repurposed old wood still in the building, sanded it down, polyed it, and preserved it pretty nice. So because this kitchen is so wide open, we had additional lighting up top to kind of brighten it up. Still has a pretty nice glow to it. We lowered the elevator, which is on the 2nd floor. We took the floor out underneath it and we lowered it down using a block and tackle, and to see it go down the same channel, the same shaft that it ran up and down for 20, 30 years, and the people that it hauled up and down, and now we were bringing it down for the last time. This is the last time this elevator will ever take this descent. I thought, I know contractors that I'm friends with, I know guys that I look up to that have never done this, and they never will. I think of guys that will come after our company and help remodel Okmulgee behind us, and I think, you won't get to do this, but I did. This is something that no other person in Okmulgee will get to experience except for me and our company. A wide open living room. This is a beautiful atmosphere. We still have our exposed conduit. We don't want to put anything or disturb the walls or ceilings if we don't have to. So we have exposed conduit for our electrical, exposed ductwork for our HVAC, a ceiling fan. Now, this is more of like a modesty wall. We wanted to kind of break up some of this wide openness when it gets to the bathrooms and the bedrooms. So we wanted to make sure that this wall served a distinct purpose in isolating this as open living space and this as bedroom space. Again, something difficult to keep in mind is that we can build a regular wall and it just be a normal wall, or we can use something the building gave us, like the elevator grate. Now, all the kitchens have that kind of lighting in it, and that's where it came from. But we used the grate as a whole and inserted it up there so that we could actually see through it, and we still maintain our modesty and our private through this wall. This is another area. One of these windows we preserved out of one of the areas that we took. I think it was in apartment 3. We took that whole grid of windows down. We don't want this apartment to stay real dark, and because this is the west end of the building, when the sun goes down, it shines through that bedroom and comes through this window and illuminates the open living space. It was kind of a gamble because we didn't know if there would be that much light come through. Man, as soon as we installed it, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening one night, the sun went down and we were all standing right here, and that sun shone right into this apartment, and it was absolutely beautiful.
Just the elements of the doors, the windows, and where they repurposed things. It just all came together so beautifully.
Keep in mind, nothing was here. So all of these walls, all of these bedrooms, all the closets, the bathrooms, everything was built in. The bathroom, we were able to use the original door. So we've got the original door here. And we built in a real nice bathroom here into a tub. Again, everything looks small, but it's an apartment, okay? We can't build in, 120, 140 square foot bathrooms, but we can build bathrooms that fit the size of the building and the apartment. That's exactly what this room did. We come into one of the bedrooms, and it actually has the old telephone panel where all of the telephone lines came into the whole office space inside the building. So that's the original box, the original telephone. And when I had the telephone guys come in and just educate me, tell me what all this is, and they explained every single part of what that box did and what it represented. That was really impressive. Now, obviously, we took it out because what we want is we want the fastest internet, we want fiber optics, we want the fastest telephone, we want digital cable and television. It really worked out great. So again, the same concept here. We built in a closet here, but instead of just stopping the ceiling, we went ahead and ran the ceiling all the way across the door so that we could have a little bit more storage space and create a pretty neat architectural design for the space. You couldn't draw on blueprints what that post or what that elevator gave us. It was something that was remarkable. So at those times, I think about, how cool would it be to talk to the guys, the men that put this post together and installed it in the building, or these wooden beams that are exposed now, whoever installed the elevator or who operated the elevator. I think I'm touching and I'm experiencing a part of history and that this building is providing me with. And a lot of times I just felt grateful. I felt so incredibly grateful and blessed to enjoy an experience like this. I can't believe I still to look back on it and know that it's gorgeous now, but the process was incredible. It was incredible. Okay, one of the last rooms in the entire building was an office for the building manager, which is Mary Llewellyn. Her and Gene, her husband, they needed an area to kind of manage the mercantile downstairs and the restaurant, and then of course all of the rental spaces upstairs. So this area was the one that was left over, so it became a real nice 12 by 14 room to have an office in. One of the cool features in here is that this was the elevator shaft. And so we had to bring in new flooring because we didn't have enough to repurpose. So the new oak hardwood flooring to cover up where the actual elevator sat. All of this rock was damaged behind it. So when Mary saw the other apartments that had an exposed rock wall, she said, I have to have that. So the rest of this all came down. It came down pretty easy, actually. And we cleaned up this old rock, this old sandstone rock, and cleaned up the grout lines and sealed this up. This office space is actually really, really functional because we were able to build in the old bathroom. This whole building had 2 bathrooms. Through this door was the women's restroom, and that became the actual door. We wanted to keep the door. We took down the women's restroom. That's the door to the office, and then if you peek through, this is her restroom, her private restroom. The door on the back of the backsplash is the men's room door. So from the outside of the hallway, that men's room door is actually the centerpiece for her vanity in her bathroom. The vanity that we built for is a custom vanity. It was actually a door that we found in the building that had some really, really neat kind of paint slash stain work, and we actually cut it down and installed it as her personal vanity. So we could have went to Lowe's or Home Depot or somewhere and bought a vanity. It would have been more like a 42 or 48 inch vanity, and it'd fit fine. It would have done okay. But in this space by itself, with her backsplash being a door itself, and we found this one, the building presented another opportunity to be able to make her a custom vanity that I just don't think you're ever going to see again, especially in this kind of setting. Got her a modern bowl set here. Now all of the tile work, our company actually did all the tile work inside the bathrooms. This is the leftover tile we had. And so we decided to crush up all the tile that we had left over and hand place them in a mosaic custom flooring for her bathroom. And it turns out that she just fell in love with it. So in an area like this where you have to have bathrooms, that's a given. You have to have the amenities, which are toilets and showers and tubs and stuff like that. You've got to have good lighting. But there's some areas like flooring and vanities and paint and things like the door that the building gives you that you just can't get anywhere else. So in a building like this, there's a lot of struggles, there's a lot of unknowns, there's things you don't know that are behind that wall, there's areas that you gotta deal with, like a 100-year-old elevator. Plaster falls down in unexpected places, and your floors, sometimes they're burned, sometimes they have water damage, sometimes they're pre-finished, sometimes they've never had anything on them. So, so many areas like this in these old buildings. If you don't look at them as opportunities to succeed, these areas can get you down, those big unknowns, those big question marks. But in this particular building, with the help of our incredible crew with Two Guys and a Hammer and building owners like Gene and Mary, who have been outstanding, I mean, extremely understanding through the whole process, building like this becomes a roaring success in a little town like Okmulgee. So I appreciate you coming to spend the afternoon with me. This has been an exciting, life-changing experience inside this building. And if you're ever in the area in Okmulgee, Oklahoma, stop in on the square and take your own personal tour of the Park on the Square.